Guys, we got huge news coming out of Seattle as ESPN's Brady Henderson dropped a bombshell article about Russell Wilson and his relationship with the Seattle Seahawks. And some of the stuff that's being reported is just absolutely mind-blowing. It kind of puts more context as to why Wilson was traded to the Denver Broncos in March of earlier this year. This trade came as a shock for many, even though there were rumors about the two parties having disagreements, but it's not very often you hear a franchise trade their QB, especially of Russell Wilson's caliber. This is a QB who had taken the Seahawks to the playoffs 8 of the last 10 seasons and won the NFC West division 4 times. That being said, there was always a little bit of drama in Seattle as many began to speculate there was division in the locker room between Wilson and the Legion of Boom. Going back to Super Bowl 48 against the Pats, many still fault Pete Carroll for putting the ball in Russ's hands as it cost the team a second straight Super Bowl title and quite possibly stopped them from becoming a dynasty. During Russell Wilson's 10 years in Seattle, there was always discussion about how the organization failed to put the right pieces in place for the QB, especially in the offensive line. Who's known to be one of the most mobile quarterbacks, was drowning in pass protection as he was sacked over 400 times in his career. There's tons of clips of Russ running around in and out of the pocket like a chicken with his head cut off while D tackles are chasing him. Simply put, his body has been battered after all those hits he's taken throughout the years. And when you look at one of the members of his draft class in Andrew Luck, who also took an immense amount of punishment in the pocket, it's crazy to think how Russell Wilson hadn't missed a single game up until last season, or is even still in the league. Anyways, the report goes on to say that Seahawks GM John Schneider actually contemplated on looking for a replacement quarterback as he attended Patrick Mahomes' pro day back in 2017, and had the Chiefs QB fallen later in the rounds, Seattle would have drafted him. And if that wasn't bad enough, the following year, Schneider was also there in attendance for Josh Allen's pro day in Wyoming. Then when all of this made its way back to Russell Wilson's camp, the Seattle QB was livid, and rightfully so. Wilson was still playing at a high level, taking the team to the playoffs and winning division titles, all while the brasses up top were looking at his future replacement. In Schneider's eyes, all he was doing was his job. Looking for the next QB, if one ever fell on his lap, was just his way of being thorough. He thought it was his duty to look at every top talent in the draft no matter what position it was, because of course he was the GM and was in charge of these sort of things. Anyways, Seattle continued with Russ for the next few seasons, and he responded, posting some pretty insane numbers. However, with all that, it didn't matter because in October of 2019, in a game against the Falcons, Russ's relationship with his head coach would turn sour. That year, Wilson was having an MVP caliber season as heading into the Week 8 game, Russ threw for 17 touchdowns with only 1 pick. He was clearly the front runner for the MVP midway through the season, and after taking a 24-0 lead at halftime, throwing 2 TDs, Pete decided to put his foot on the gas pedal in the second half and run the ball for the remainder of the game. Wilson only attempted 5 more passes, and this infuriated the QB, who saw his MVP hopes dash away. In the end, Lamar Jackson won the award unanimously, but the following season, Russ would see himself again in the conversation. The 2020 season saw the offense focused on Russ throwing the ball more often, which led to the social media catchphrase, "Let Russ cook," go viral. Wilson led Seattle to a 5-0 start with 19 TDs to 3 picks, but after a stretch of 4 games where he turned over the football 10 times, Pete reverted the offense back to running the ball. And 2020 would end in disaster against the Rams in the playoffs when Russ threw a pick 6 and was sacked 5 times. Now, this is the part where things get very interesting in the story. Remember earlier in the video, we discussed John Schneider visiting Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen's pro day? Well, it's also being reported that before the 2018 NFL draft, the Seahawks front office called the Cleveland Browns, who just happened to have the first pick in their hands, to discuss a possible trade that included swapping Russell Wilson for the first overall pick. However, the Cleveland Browns said no and drafted Baker Mayfield instead. Now imagine where we'd be if that trade had taken place, presumably with Baker in Seattle and Russ in Cleveland. Anyways, so this ultimately made its way back to Wilson's camp, which in turn is the reason why he added a no-trade clause in his contract extension right before the 2019 draft. This gave Russ more control if he wanted out of Seattle, and in the end, this is what he did when he left for Denver. Russ was tired of seeing his contemporaries like Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes have much more say and control in the franchise and making Super Bowl appearances, while he felt that Pete Carroll was holding him back. This just goes to show you Russ's hunger to be an all-time great. With what he's accomplished thus far, he's a lock for a first ballot Hall of Fame, but that's simply not enough for him.